On our newscast this evening, U.S. begins airstrikes on Islamic State militants in Syria. Officials say multiple targets were struck. South Korea and Canada put pen to ink on a free trade deal that raises their relationship to a strategic partnership. In sports, Team Korea continues to bag medals at the Asian Games. Equestrian Hwang Young-sik helps the home team South Korea snatch 2 gold medals in men's dressage. Stay with us for these and more on Early Edition at 6.
It's 6 p.m. on Tuesday, September 23rd here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Laah Hyun-kyung.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. We begin with the start of U.S. airstrikes on Islamic State targets, this time in Syria. The attacks began in early morning hours local time.
All eyes are on how they are being carried out as it marks an escalation in U.S.-led efforts to counter what Washington has called a global terror threat.
Our Hyun-bin starts us off.
The United States and its allies have started airstrikes in Syria, in line with U.S. President Barack Obama's pledge to degrade and destroy the militant group that calls itself the Islamic State. The airstrikes early Tuesday morning in Syria targeted a number of areas, including in and around the Syrian province of Raqqa, which is an IS stronghold. Pentagon Press Secretary Rear Admiral John Kirby said fighter and bomber jets were used in the initial onslaught to clear 20 IS targets. These include buildings that are believed to be used as command and control headquarters for the militant group, as well as training and resupply centers. A number of Arab nations participated in the strikes, including Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Qatar, and Bahrain. While the Syrian government was given advance notice of the airstrikes, they have not provided formal consent for them. Around 2/3 of the Islamic State militant groups, an estimated 30,000 fighters, are based in Syria, while the rest are scattered throughout large parts of northern Iraq. Over recent months, they have claimed wide swaths of land throughout the area, leaving a bloody trail of destruction in their wake. For the last several weeks, the U.S. has conducted surveillance flights over the region. According to the U.S. Central Command, the United States has launched 190 airstrikes in Iraq since August. These represent the first in Syria. Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, it was a historic moment in Ottawa on Monday in terms of the bilateral ties between Korea and Canada as the two countries signed a free trade pact. And our presidential office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun reports that it wasn't the only deal inked between the two nations.
9 years after launching trade negotiations, Korea and Canada signed their free trade agreement on Monday.
FTA 효과가 교역, 투자 분야를 넘어 기술 협력, 인적 교류, 민간 경제 협력 등 제반 분야로 파급이 돼서 양국의 경제 협력이 한 단계 도약할 수 있도록.
With the FTA signing, President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Stephen Harper elevated their relations to a strategic partnership, placing a greater emphasis on their political and economic cooperation and mutual trust. Seoul and Ottawa set global peace and co-prosperity as their shared goals. The two partnering nations sealed a number of other deals to increase cross-sharing of advanced technologies. For instance, Korea will offer up its know-how in IT-based new energy industries, such as the smart grid and energy storage systems, in return for Canada's shale gas and oil sands exploration and development technologies.
We pushed for a memorandum of understanding to expand from cooperation in our strong clean energy technology to that of Canada's oil technology.
President Park and Prime Minister Harper will also expand their working holiday program to encourage more people-to-people exchanges. The Korean president also secured Ottawa's support for her North Korea policies. President Park is now in New York to carry out multilateral diplomacy at the United Nations. At Tuesday's UN Climate Summit, she will speak about building a growth engine out of the global problem by converging IT with culture and other sectors in a creative economy. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News, New York.
A meeting on North Korea's human rights record will take place on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly on Tuesday, New York time. Pyongyang says it wishes to join the high-level talks, which will be chaired by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. Our Kim Min-ji has more.
A high-level meeting discussing North Korea's human rights violations will be held on Tuesday local time on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. The meeting, which will be presided by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, will be attended by South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon as well as diplomats from the European Union and Japan. The dire human rights situation in Pyongyang has come under greater international attention this year following the release of a report by the UN Commission of Inquiry that accuses North Korea's leaders of widespread, systematic and gross human rights violations. Kerry is expected to condemn North Korea's human rights abuses, focusing on its political prison camps, and he will also likely bring up the issue of the 3 Americans detained in the north. The meeting is aimed at garnering support for a UN resolution on the issue. Pyongyang is also asked to attend the meeting. The North Korean ambassador to the UN, Cha Sung-nam, said the North was waiting for an answer.
We told the U.S. that we will attend the talks. If the meeting is focused on North Korean issues, we should attend. We are waiting for an answer from Washington. If they really want to solve this issue through dialogue, we see no reason why they would turn us down.
However, the ambassador struck a more negative tone in regards to a potential meeting between the foreign ministers of the 2 Koreas on the sidelines of the UN gathering. He said talks should be held in Korea and not in a foreign country or international organization, as they are from the same country. North Korea sent its foreign minister Lee Soo-young and vice foreign minister to New York. Lee will address the General Assembly later this week. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
South Korea has once again urged North Korea to come to talks rather than issuing unilateral statements. This in response to North Korea condemning the launch of anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border by South Korean civic activists on Sunday. The North issued a statement Monday calling the act a challenge to their efforts for improving inter-Korean relations. An official at Seoul's Unification Ministry clarified the South Korean government's stance again, which is that all pending issues between the Koreas, including the flying of those leaflets, can be resolved through dialogue. Meanwhile, North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly is set to meet later this week for the second time this year. The Legislative Assembly will begin on Thursday, and the tension is on whether new reform measures will be introduced. This, as the regime has been reportedly introducing new economic policies that give more incentives to the working class. Also being watched is whether North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will attend the assembly meeting. He has not been seen at official events for about 3 weeks now, fueling speculation about possible health problems.
We are nearing the end of day 4 of the Asian Games underway in Korea's western port city of Incheon, and it is Asia's biggest sporting event, so I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about tonight, actually.
Right. Our Song Ji-sun joins us in the studio for the latest. Ji-sun, I think everyone will be gathering together to cheer on Park Tae-hwan for his pursuit of his maiden gold at the Incheon Asian Games tonight.
Right, in less than 2 hours now, Korea's Marine boy Park Tae-hwan is vying to defend his title in the 400-meter freestyle, in which he won both in the previous 2 Asian Games in Doha and Gwangju. He finished 3rd overall in the qualifier this morning, behind longtime rival Chinese Sun Yang and Japan's up-and-rising star Hagino Kosuke. Park got off to a rather disappointing start to the Games. He finished 3rd in his first event, the 200-meter freestyle, which was won by Hagino, who is competing in his first Asian Games. In fact, Hagino is the first triple gold medalist in Incheon 2014. He has won in the 200-meter medley and 800-meter relay as well. So if you're looking for Park's main competition tonight, it would be Hagino and Sun, who holds the Asian record for the event, once held by Park. Park and Sun and Hagino will face off in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th lane respectively at 8:15 this evening.
So many Koreans will be in front of their TVs at around 8 p.m. Korea time. Now, it seems like Korea and Japan, or many Korean and Chinese athletes for that matter, are going head-to-head in many of these finals. And it was the same case in the shooting range as well.
Right, and this time over in the shooting range, Chinese picked up another gold for men's 10-meter air rifle team's event after South Korea finished 2nd. Now, Chinese shooters never let the Koreans take the lead, finishing nearly 20 points higher than Korea at 1,867 points. Chinese shooters went on to dominate the individual event as well, just hours later, with 18-year-old Yang Haoran winning and fellow national Cao Yifei taking the silver. China has now raked in 17 medals in this sport alone in Incheon.
Let's go over to the equestrians or the horseback riding event. Many consider it a luxury sport, with some of the Olympians in the event members of the royal families. But for some countries, I believe like Korea, it was a different case. A lot of blood, sweat and toil and determination to stay focused in this rather unpopular sport.
Right, I actually do horseback ride, and it's a very expensive sport indeed. But this time it was not a princess or a prince, but it was a very dedicated athlete who won the gold in the men's individual freestyle dressage event this afternoon after leading his team to group victory on Saturday. Now, Hwang Young-sik's father owned a horse riding ranch, which enabled him to get on a horse in his kindergarten years. He later honed his skills in Germany while a teenager. And then there's the story of Kim Dong-sun, who won the silver after Hwang today in the individual freestyle dressage. Kim is the son of Kim Seung-yeon, who is the chairman of Korea's conglomerate Hanwha Group. Now, this group also owns a members-only horse riding ranch in northern Seoul.
All right, so where do the teams stand in terms of the medals as we speak?
Well, even after these medals, the top three remains pretty firm, with China in the lead after raking more than a quarter of the total medals awarded in this year's Asian Games. South Korea and Japan are in second and third respectively. And we should also note that North Korea is doing great for now at 5th place, with their goal set on finishing off 10th. And here's a look at the competitions taking place this evening. Now, these are just some events we picked out for you not to miss. So for a full schedule of events, please visit Incheon 2014, ag.com or org.
All right.
Well, thank you for those updates, Ji-sung. We look forward to having you back here for more exciting events and, of course, exciting news of Korea winning some gold, silver, or bronze, or just any breakthrough accomplishment.
Stay tuned too. Take part in this biggest Asia sporting event, and I'll be back here tomorrow.
A one-day entry ban. 77.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best. With Laah Hyun-kyung and Daniel Choy.
Arirang News.
Arirang News. On Early Edition at 6.
The numbers from Apple's first weekend of sales for the new iPhone 6 and 6 Plus are out, and they've topped last year's record set by the 5C and 5S models. Analysts say the tech giant will have even more to celebrate when the new gadgets hit the Chinese market. Connie Kim reports.
Apple enthusiasts cheer in delight as they rush into an Apple store in New York to be the first to get their hands on the newly launched iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus. One Apple fan holds up his prized new iPhone after camping out since early in the morning.
Big hands need a big phone. That's it, you know? No, actually, the better camera, longer battery life.
I'm most excited about the Apple Pay, be able to pay without having to take out my wallet.
Apple says it has smashed its sales record for an opening weekend of a new iPhone model, delivering 10 million iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus in the first 3 days of sale. This tally beats the previous record set last year when Apple sold 9 million iPhone 5C and 5S. The record streak is expected to take another huge leap forward when the new iPhones hit the Chinese market, Apple's most lucrative market. The U.S. tech giant's new handsets are reportedly being sold at up to 3 times the retail price in Beijing's black markets. The battle between Apple and Samsung will reach boiling point next week when the Korean firm rolls out its Galaxy Note 4 in Korea and the U.S. Meanwhile, local brokerage firms are slashing Samsung Electronics' third-quarter profit earnings, citing the firm's slowing smartphone business. Samsung Securities says it expects Samsung Electronics to post a third-quarter operating profit of $4.5 billion, down $1 billion from a projection made early this month. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, also doing well in the Chinese market is Korea's Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors. Their market share in China is expected to break a 9-year high this year. Industry sources say Hyundai and Kia sold over 1 million cars during the first 8 months of this year, with a combined market share standing at 10.6%. Now, that figure is the highest since 2005, when they accounted for 11% of Chinese market. With the automakers' newly released models, analysts forecast they will surpass the mark this year. However, others say it's too early to tell, as the Korean automakers are still waiting for Chinese approval on building 4 manufacturing plants in the country. But a factor posing a threat to Korea's automakers is Japan's weakened local currency. The overall performance of Hyundai and Kia dropped in the April to June period, and Korean policymakers are becoming increasingly concerned. Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
A strong Korean won has emerged as major threats to local exporters, especially those in the auto industry who are fiercely competing with their Japanese rivals. Korea's top automaker Hyundai Motor saw its operating profits plunge by 13%, and its smaller affiliate Kia Motors 32% in the second quarter of this year, while Japanese automakers all reported profit gains. Korean policymakers are concerned that the Japanese currency could weaken further after depreciating for the past year and a half.
If Japanese companies start lowering costs based on the improved profitability they get from the weak yen trend, it will have a major negative impact on Korea's exports.
Still, experts say it could be too early for Korean policymakers to act on the exchange rate changes immediately.
Most of the changes in the exchange rates against the dollar, as well as changes in won-yen currency, just came in about the last 2 weeks. So we'll have to see whether this will be a medium-term problem that goes on for a few months, or whether it's just a short-term problem that will be reversed.
It also seems very unlikely that Korea's central bank will lower its key rate to deal with the weak yen trend, as the governor has made it clear that the won-yen exchange rate cannot be the sole factor for setting the nation's interest rate. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
The gender gap in Korean workplaces is narrowing. New data shows that women in their 20s and 30s are more active economically these days, which is a positive sign. But as our Shin Se-min reports, there is still much to be done.
There's one group in which Korean women are more active in their labor force than their male counterparts, that being those in their 20s. Nearly 65% of women in their 20s were engaged in the labor force by either having a job or actively seeking employment in the second quarter of this year. That's about 3 percentage points higher than the so-called labor participation rate for men in the age group. Many women in their 30s drop out of workforce after they get married, but nearly 59% of them stayed in the labor market in the second quarter. It is the highest rate since 2000, when the data was first collected. That said, there is much work to be done. According to a recent report by Korea's National Assembly Research Service, Korea's income gender gap is widest in the developed world. Statistics compiled by the OECD show that it was 39% in 2010 in terms of full-time employee wages. The government has been seeking measures to level the playing field, with a recent report from the Korean Women's Development Institute saying the lag in the economic participation rate of women had created roughly $192 billion in social costs over the past 13 years. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And there's another goal the government is pushing for: enriching the country with more cultural contents. That vision is apparently being reflected in next year's budget. Our Park Ji-won has the details.
The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism unveiled its budget plans for 2015 Tuesday. The final number will come in at more than $4.5 billion. And while that's just 1.3% of the government's overall spending of $360 billion next year, it represents a more than a 10% increase from this year and the biggest boost among all ministries. The tourism, sports, and arts and culture sectors will make up slightly more than a quarter of the total culture budget each, followed by the contents industry at around 12%. By subsector, the sports and contents industry will see the largest rate of growth. That's partly due to preparations for the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in 2018. The contents industry, which includes film, music, games, and animations, will see more than 18% increase to nearly $590 million next year, as the incumbent administration sees it as a growth engine for the creative economy. The Park administration has vowed to increase the annual cultural budget to an OECD average level of about 2% of total government spending by 2017. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, we are in the middle of autumn here in Korea, and this is when many Koreans tend to travel within the country.
Right, especially as many spend their summer vacations overseas. So for those planning to travel Korea in the next week and a half, you might find this next report helpful. Kwon So-ah has more.
Most Koreans go on vacation during the summer. But the beautiful colors of autumn and perfect weather these days call for taking some days off and traveling around the country. And now may be the best time to plan a trip as the so-called 2014 Autumn Tourism Week kicks off at the end of this week. The campaign, introduced by the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism and the Korea Tourism Organization, runs from September 25th to October 5th. More than 3,700 tourism-related businesses are participating, offering lots of events and discounts that should lessen the financial burden on domestic travelers. They range from cheaper transportation and accommodation fees to food and event price cuts. Korea's state-run railway operator Korail and the nation's biggest express bus operator Kumo Bus Lines are offering discounts of up to 30% on tickets. Price reductions on gasoline at major tourist locations, for rental cars and room rates at 180 hotels will be slashed too. Not only that, Korea's ancient palaces and amusement parks can be enjoyed at discount prices.
We want to promote discounts at main tourism businesses to encourage people to take trips. We are taking into consideration people's time and financial restrictions, and we hope to boost the economy.
The 2014 Spring Tourism Week was launched earlier this year, but the project fell flat, largely due to April's ferry disaster that made people feel less inclined to travel. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Otherwise, we are about to start feeling the effects of a typhoon.
Well, let's turn to our Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for that and more. Michelle, give us the details.
Hello, good evening. Typhoon Fong-Wong is currently affecting the eastern China and will head back out to the sea near Korea's Jeju Island. And the south of nation has already started seeing this indirect effects of the storm. And we are expecting heavy rain of about 200 millimeters in the mountainous regions of Jeju Island through tomorrow, while most other regions will be getting between 50 and 100 from tonight until tomorrow evening. Now, also because of this huge amount of rain, we can expect cooler temperatures tomorrow, ranging from between 21 to 27 degrees. Now, over in Incheon, the host city of Asian Games, the highs will drop down to 21 degrees on Wednesday with rain expected all day. Now, going over to our temperature readings for tomorrow. Seoul will start off the morning at 18 before reaching up to 21 degrees in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will see lower highs of 25 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island peaks at just 27, while Dokdo at 21, while Mangkeong drops lower to 19. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for that, Michelle. That's a wrap for us. Thank you for staying with us. To our viewers in different time zones, have a wonderful day. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Laah Hyun-kyung, wishing our viewers in Korea a good evening. More news is coming up in about an hour and a half time on Arirang. Do tune in again. Bye-bye.